So here we are in sunny Anaheim for the 2015 NAMM convention. Welcome to a continuation of the Sessions Legends series. As I'm sure you can tell, I am sitting here with the great Jonathan Moffett, Sugarfoot himself. Go check him out on YouTube, look up his discography, go to his website, buy his Christmas album. This is a guy who's played with everybody from Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, Janet Jackson, toured with Madonna, and of course Elton John. Also plays around with Cameo. He's the greatest guy, and I'm delighted to have him here. He's truly a legend. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, good, man. It's great to see you. Let's go back to when you first started listening to music. Mm-hmm. Now, you're from New Orleans, right?
Yes, born and raised in New Orleans.
And New Orleans is a place that's synonymous with music.
Yeah, it's part of the culture there. Music, art, and food is in New Orleans. It comes from New Orleans, and they live and breathe it. It's part of the social order of New Orleans, yes.
So tell me, how when you were growing up, and when you were living in New Orleans with your family, what role did music play in your life?
Well, in our very young years, none actually. Not until my father came home from work one day. He worked at the post office. One of his friend's sons lived in California, and he played drums. And he came home and had this idea to keep us off the street. I was 6 years old, and he introduced music to us and asked me and my two brothers, who were older than I was, do we want to play music? And we just know the word music, and of course we know what music is, but we didn't know what it involved in learning to be a musician. So we just got excited and said, yes, yes. So my brothers got to choose first because they were older. And I wanted to play guitar, but originally a bass guitar. And then my other older brother said, I'll play bass guitar. And I said, oh man, I missed out. And then I said, okay, I'll play lead guitar. And my other second brother said, I want to play, when he got asked, he said, I want to play guitar. And I said, oh man, guitar again. And then my father asked me, and I said, I want to play guitar. He said, well, we can't have all guitars in the family. You got to play something else and stuff. Now, the only other instrument I knew was drums. I said, okay, I'll play drums. And that's how I got into drums. And my father asked me. But basically keep us off the street and get us interested in something creative, It
worked out pretty well for you, by the way.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, if you'd been a bass player, we may not be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, it was basically a forced blessing.
Now, did you start off playing New Orleans type music?
Well, at that age 6, I had to learn everything from the basic ground up. So my father went out and invested money in all of my equipment, and he got me a marching drum, an old Ludwig, since the early 60s marching drum. That's what I started out on, with private lessons from a gentleman named Mylan Jones, and he was a teacher at a school and taught at night at his home. So he would take us on Saturday nights, and one by one, we wait in line and we do our lessons. So, and he basically taught me the rudiments, the basic rudiments and stuff. So that's how I started off on that, on one drum. And then every subsequent birthday, for a birthday present, he would get me an addition to make a drum set. The next birthday, I got a bass drum with a cymbal on top. So I had a year to work with the bass drum, and that's the big marching snare drum. And then with the cymbal, one cymbal on top. Then the next birthday, he got me 2 rack toms. And none of it matched, but it was cool. I didn't care. And then the birthday, he got me the floor tom and 2 other cymbals. By the time I was 8.5, 9 years old, I had the whole set. But I had a year to work with each element of the kit, additional element, and work it in.
Now, I've seen the kit that you were playing on the Cirque du Soleil Immortal Tour.
Yeah.
And frankly, it looks like you've continued to get a drum every year for your birthday until that kit's complete. How many bass drums you playing on that kit?
On that show, it was 3 bass drums.
Okay.
I play 3 bass drums, 22, 24, and 26.
No, well, we'll get back to that. I'm
Yeah.
just interested that was the route you took. Now, living in New Orleans, did you march? Did you do second line stuff?
Well, I wanted to be in a marching band. Unfortunately for me, my genetics, just for me, and my brothers were different, I was shorter when I was young. I didn't start springing up till I was 15. So every time in elementary school they tried to put that big marching drum on me in a strap, and I was so short and small, it was bigger than me, and it would start rolling all around. I was chasing it around, trying to play the rhythms and stuff. So they said, this is not for you. You can't march because the drum is bigger than you. You can't control it, because I was small and thin.
But it didn't discourage you, though, right?
They didn't discourage me. They put me in concert bands type things. And I worked my way up from elementary school, junior high school, and 10th grade of first year of senior high school, I got to first chair in drums, learning rudiment stuff, But behind the scenes at home, I was learning how the elements of the drum kit and how to incorporate all these elements together and play rhythms and independence and everything from listening to all the records of that time, the Motown stuff, the James Brown specialty drums, his stuff, all the artists that influenced and top hit records I learned, the Stax records and Atlantic Records artists. I learned the beats from them by getting off the drums, running back and grab the needle from the vinyl. Back then we had vinyl, and put the needle back, run to the drums before it started, and then try to catch it start when they started.
Didn't you wish when you were doing that, because I used to do that too, didn't you wish when you were doing that some of these records would at least give you a count before it started?
I surely do, yeah, because by the time I get to the drums, it had already started, and I had to go back again and do it again until I got the timing right of getting on the drums before the music started.
So, other than that original teacher that you had, who helped teach you the rudiments, did you have any other formal instruction in your instrument?
There was nobody in the neighborhood and nobody to teach me drum set at all. It was the only desire of being influenced and inspired by the people, Ringo Starr and all the other artists, drummer artists, that of the time way back then. And like back those days when I early started playing, they didn't put the musician's name on the albums. So I didn't know who was playing drums. All I know is that beat was cool. I got to learn that, and I got to figure that out. So I'd spend the time breaking it down in my mind and my spirit, how to, what hand had to cross where to make it happen without losing anything in the beats and parts of the pattern.
It's funny, I think kids growing up today don't realize how lucky they are to have the internet as a resource sometimes to go and learn those things.
Yeah.
But I wonder sometimes if it didn't make you a more solid player, that you had to work all that out for yourself and suffer and get it wrong and then correct it.
Yeah, I think it made me a more investigative player. It takes mindset and deep thinking how to figure those things out. With the videos you can watch what the drummers' hands are doing. It's all spelled out for you, basically. But back then, no drummer's name on the album, nobody to show you how he did it. So you had to basically listen to the tones of the drums or the cymbals and know and say, well, he must have did this to make that happen because this other thing is still going. I got to cross here to make that keep that happening, and you had to basically try to figure it out. And so it's a lot of calculative thinking, which develops and it is beneficial in all aspects of life.
Now, did your brothers keep playing music?
They did until their teens, like mid-teens. Then people were sometimes discouraging. They said, you can't make a living at music. This is a hobby. This is a sideline thing. So my brothers got a little discouraged. They listened more than I did. And they got jobs, worked in jobs. One brother wound up being a medical technologist at the VA hospital. And then the other one wound up being a sergeant. He ended up being a sergeant in the police force. But he still stayed with his guitar a little bit, but not as much as he really said he liked to. He wish he had.
So what do you think made you persevere with the instrument? I mean, often it's something, it seems to me when I talk to accomplished musicians, there's something inside them that makes them just not want to stop what they're doing.
Yes, it's got to be, for me, it's a soul gratification. It's such a deep, intense sense of joy and happiness that it brought me to physically play drums and do something physically challenging. And also to do something mentally challenging and figuring these things out. And once you do it and you learn it and you figure it out, you feel, in a way, like I'm smart. I can do some things. And I want to do more. I want to learn more. You get hungry for that, knowing that you have the ability to work things out and calculate things and visualize. You have to visualize what the drummer's doing to make that pattern happen. So you got to imagine and visualize what he had to be doing. And sometimes I didn't know, like, say, for instance, what got me the job with the Jacksons when I auditioned was the last song, was the biggest challenge they thought I couldn't do. Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. I learned that beat because I listened to, like I told you, what happened when, and this hand had to cross here, and had to come back here really fast to make the other beat from the full time. Come to find out when I auditioned, they stopped and they were looking at me, and it's like, well, puzzling, and started doing like this and whispering to each other. And I'm like, oh man, I'm blowing it. They don't like what I'm doing. That's not right. But turns out that they realized, and they made me realize that track on Shake Your Body Down to the Ground was a 3-part overdub. The drummer couldn't play it all at once. But out of ignorance of me not knowing, I thought he did it. So if he can do it, I can do that. I just got to figure out what pattern goes when. And I sat there and I figured it out. And so when I started playing that beat, they started getting puzzled and, oh my God, they're looking at each other and like frowning and whispering in each other's ear. Then he started smiling. I said, they're laughing at me. And then Randy said, stop. And he walked around to the side. I said, what's wrong with them? Doing something wrong? He said, no, let me play that again. And I started playing Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. And then he listened for a while, and he grabbed his face like this and said, oh, no. And he ran off. I said, oh man, I must be really blowing it. I'm not gonna get this gig. And then he said, no, don't. Sugarfoot, play it once more time, but this time play it slow, real slow. So I started playing it real slow. And he's looking, he's watching out like really intently. And I'm crossing like I'm supposed to cross when I'm supposed to. And he ran off again like, oh my God. And I said, what's happened, what's wrong? They said, no, Sugarfoot, you don't understand. Nobody could do that beat at one time, all at once. That was a 3-part overdub, 3 separate tracks. And here you're playing it all at once. But as I mentioned, to go back, what I mentioned is I didn't know that.
That's perfect.
I saw in my mind this guy doing it all at once.
But you know, there's a great lesson in there, though, right? Because did you know you were going to have to audition to that track?
It was a hit song at the time. I figured they were going to play it, but I was ready for it.
And that's the key, right?
And
Preparation.
I was ready for it. I mean, not planned ready for it, but another reason that made me ready for it was back then I worked for a producer at Allen Toussaint, famous Allen Toussaint Studios. And he wanted to rip that song off, and he basically did. and he had me play it for an artist he was producing down there. And I tried to change it up, and he said, no, it's not right. I thought you knew this song. And I said, yes, I do. And I'm thinking, oh, you can't steal a beat. You get in trouble. You go to jail. I was thinking real naive and innocent. And he said, no. And I said, okay, I'll play it right this time. And he pressed the talk back and said, okay, let's go. And counted off and play it. I said, I can't do it just like the record. I'll get in trouble. They might pick me up in my house and put me in jail. I thought you'd get arrested for that. I really did. So I would change. I gotta change something else. What am I change? Oh, I'm gonna change the floor time, the time pattern. So I play it again, and he stopped. And I said, what's wrong? He said, that's not it. I thought you knew that beat. I said, I do know it. He said, come on in. Played the song for me. And I said, I know how to do that. He said, why? Well, why are you not playing it like that? I said, because that's stealing. And if you steal, you go to jail. And they bust up laughing, the whole studio. So he said, no, if the police comes, tell them I told you to play the beat, I'll go to jail. And I said, okay. And I went in there and played it just like the record. And he said, that's it.
I mean, it's a good job we don't go to jail for stealing other people's drum
I
licks,
know,
let me
I
tell
know.
you. I would have been in trouble a long time ago.
But see, that lesson in that helped prepare me for that audition as well. I had to learn that beat, get it down really close for that session. And so that was before I moved to Los Angeles. So that helped prepare me for learning that beat and knowing it.
So at what stage did you know that music was going to be your life?
At 9 years old, after I got all my stuff incorporated in my playing facilities. And, we used to do talent shows, dances, and block parties and stuff in New Orleans. And we was at a talent show at my brother's school, St. Augustine, very famous school. And their marching band, they're known for the Marching 100 band. It's real popular all throughout the South. So when we were there, and we were setting up my band, my brother's band was named the Cavaliers. I was the youngest, Cavaliers. And we were setting up our equipment in the auditorium for this talent show. And I'm setting up my cymbals and everything, and we're just setting up. And the girls and the people just screaming, all the kids out there screaming for us. And I felt the gratification. They was excited and calling out our band name and everything. And I felt a gratification from that, a pleasure from that was so strong that people appreciate what we're about to do. We haven't even played yet. But I love that feeling, that people paying attention and take notice, and they appreciate us. I was put my cymbals on, and screwing it on. I remember thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to feel this feeling all my life. I'm going to be a drummer all my life. This is what I want to do.
That's a beautiful thing. And you managed to do it.
And I stuck to my guns. I stuck to my goals, and I stayed with it, dedicated. I didn't listen to the people say you can't do this for a living, because I felt inside, I can do this for a living.
See, I'm learning all of these valuable lessons, right? So you've got preparation. You talk about being properly prepared, perseverance.
Yes.
And the fact that you love it. Like
Yes.
There's the spiritual component, there's an intellectual component, and you put all that together, and you can end up being successful.
A strong belief too, also, that it's possible, and believing that it's meant for you. If you really deeply believe it's meant for me, and this was what I was here to do, because I feel that closeness to the source of God, a source of the power of influence, and I related to it very strongly. And I said, this is telling me, yes, this is you. This is what I brought you on earth to do. And I followed it. I listened to that voice. I always listen to that voice. Everything I do.
Well, there's definitely a spiritual component in your playing and in your demeanor and the way you carry yourself and the way you treat other people. And I think that's been really important in your success.
Yes, I absolutely know that is the first component of my success. It's a knowing. You got to know. And you got to feel it, and it's got to be true in your spirit and your mind. If it's true in your spirit, it's going to make it true in your mind because you believe it.
Well, you know, the word, everybody that talks about you says that there's an honesty in you that a lot of other people might not have, and I think that's served you beautifully in your career.
I just try to live real life. You know, I love playing and I love doing what I'm doing. I'm grateful and thankful I've gotten to the level I have and achieved all the goals the little boy, 9-year-old boy, dreamt he could do. And but you know, just try to live normal life, real life. This is what I do for a living. This is who I am. It's not just that I'm a drummer. It's who I am. But it just happens to be what I do for a living, and I don't buy into it anything beyond that. You know, everybody sees something, and I'm appreciative from that outer perspective. But for me, I'm working, and I'm enjoying my work. I love what I do, therefore I do what I love.
Now, at some stage you left New Orleans and you moved to LA. How old were you when you moved to LA?
24 years old.
Okay. And why did you make that move?
Well, it happened the year before. A band from New Orleans I had named the Money Band, called Money Band. It was an incredible band, and we decided to come out to California and LA to see if we could make it, get a record deal. And we were like Earth, Wind & Fire, Commodores, and really funky band, really talented, almost like Tower of Power, Earth, Wind & Fire, Commodores. And we drove out in '78. There's a caravan of 6 cars of us all drove out trying to make it. And one of the band members, the lead vocals, had a home in Canoga Park. So we would stay there, one of his homes, and we stayed there as a band. And I got the feel of LA. I just liked the way it felt, man. It was a different environment from New Orleans, a totally different night and day. And I liked the sunshine, the way it radiated. I liked the air, and I loved just the feel and the vibe of being here. And I said, good, we're going to make it. But then the guys start fighting in the band, arguing all the time, and taking sides, and they try to get me to take sides with them. And I said, I'm like Switzerland. I'm neutral. I don't want to be on nobody's side. I love all you guys. So anyway, they started fighting. Then they found out saying, well, we all gonna go back home. I was disappointed, and I got back we all drove back to New Orleans. And then several months later, I got a call from the singer again, who lived out here. We stayed at his home. And some of the tapes he had with him, he said Jermaine Jackson had heard me on a tape, or the band, heard our band, and said who was the drummer. And he told him about me. And then he said, can you get him back out here? Because I got a situation I'd like to use him on. So, and his name is Alfred Gilliard. We call him AJ, the guy from our band. And he called me up that August of '78 and asked and said, why don't you come back out? And Jermaine wants you to use you on something. So I was nervous coming by myself. It's different coming with a group of people. Sure. You know, but I was kind of nervous. I said, okay, I'm coming. And then I hung up the phone. It was like every few weeks or so I'd say, I'm going. And a week later I said, I'm not going to California by myself. I'm not going out there. I get stuck out there. And it went back and forth like that all the way through to December. And I'm sitting around contemplating what am I going to do. Then it hit me. You know what, Jonathan? This is a great opportunity, what you dreamed of. If you don't go, you may wind up being an old man on the porch, rocking in a rocking chair, thinking, I wonder what would happen if I had gone, if I had just given myself a chance, if I had just taken a chance and stepped out on them one time. My whole life would maybe be different than it is now. Having done nothing with my music greater than playing clubs in New Orleans. And that thought scared me. And I said, I'm going. And I made up my mind at that point with that thought. And then middle of January, I decided to drive out. And then I got a friend who had family in California. He drove with me, helped me drive. And I drove out, not by myself with him, but as a band member by myself to meet with Jermaine.
So that decision to get in your car and drive, that was a really pivotal moment.
Absolutely.
In your career. It's funny, every drummer I talk to, every musician I talk to over time, there's something, there's a seize the moment yeah. in their career where they say, the road forked in 2 directions, and if I had not taken the one I took, yeah. then things would have been really different for me. And I guess that was your moment.
But it was also something compelling. It was a voice inside saying, Jonathan, trust me. Just go. It's going to be all right. And I kept hearing his voice just calling inside saying that. Every time I got nervous, and so I said, just trust me. It's going to be all right. You'll see. And at that time when I had that notion about being an old man on the porch, then I heard that voice and said, just go with it. Just trust me. Believe. And I listened to that voice that time, and I took that chance, and a month and a half later I was with the Jacksons.
And was that for a tour?
That was for the first tour I did with them, the Destiny tour. Now, if I hadn't listened to that voice inside telling me that, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
I might have found you. I might have just found you and loved you.
Yeah, so sometimes you got to listen. You got to open up and listen.
You mentioned before that you listened to a lot of records, and
Yeah.
that was your instruction. When you look back, the people upon whose shoulders you have stood to reach the highlights in your career, what if you had to tell other young musicians you need to check out these guys? Who would you tell them to go check out?
Absolutely, James Brown drummers. Absolutely, all of
Clyde
them.
and
All of Clyde,
Jabo,
and J-Bo,
Bernard.
and Mike Melvin is one named Melvin.
Okay.
It's just anything James Brown from the '60s and '70s. You have to have that. And another one is similar kind of style, which is New Orleans Zigaboo. That's my first mentor. Not mentor, I shouldn't say, but influence, because he's a hero of New Orleans with the meters.
Absolutely.
And I got him down so much they used to call me Little Zig in New Orleans, because I just grabbed all of his licks, and I learned it because I was so inspired by them. And so those drummers with that percolating kind of feel. Then, of course, it led me to Tower Power, David Garibaldi, and I started listening to him, which he got his style from Zigaboo. He tells in his interviews. And but James Brown's drummers, I'd have to say Ringo, for simplicity and being musical with it. Inspired me. Then John Bonham was a huge fan of mine, because I was a huge fan of his, I should say, because I was into bass drum. And then here's John Bonham into bass drum. He's on the other side of the world, and he heard beats as I heard them with the bottom up. So I
Which
related to
leads us to a great question.
Yeah.
Sugarfoot.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
That name came from, well, that leads you back to my original statement when my father asked us if we want to play music, and I wanted to be a bass player. And there you go. So when I would learn the drum beats, for some reason my inner ear was tuning into the bass lines as well. So to fill it in, making me sound more full, because I know the bass drum and the bass together made the music sound so much fuller. I started incorporating the patterns of the bass parts, which were very busy on James Jamison on his fingers on the Motown stuff. And I started incorporating his patterns with the bass drum that's on the drummers playing on the record, playing them together, which over time made my foot really fluent and fast and quick to be able to manipulate like that. So after my brothers fired me from their band, my first band, because I was too young to get in nightclubs, and they wanted to meet the chicks and stuff, and they couldn't, because most clubs wouldn't.
Was cramping their style.
Yeah. One club did. The Desert Sands Club stuck me in the back door. They let me play, and I was 10 years old at that time. I was playing nightclubs since 10, but the other clubs wouldn't. So they fired me, and then the second band I auditioned for, the Brotherhood, and wound up being the Spectrum. They liked me, and they say, all right, everybody in the band has nicknames. We got to get you a nickname. And when they heard me play my bass drum technique, the leader of the band said, oh, he got that sweet foot. He got that sweet foot. I know what we call him. We call him Sugarfoot. I hated it. I didn't sound cool at all. I said, Sugarfoot, I'm not answering to that. And he said, no. Every night after the show, we're going to announce you as Sugarfoot. That's your name. I said, why you couldn't say Ace or Duke or Titan, something strong and powerful, like a superhero? He said, no, you're Sugarfoot. And so every show, they would announce me, Sugarfoot on drums, and I would just turn my head. I was not going to answer to that. But over time, that's all people came to know Sugarfoot. They didn't know Jonathan Moffett. And so I had to acknowledge it.
Well, you embraced it in the end, though.
Embraced it. But the technique came from being emulating the bass part and the drum part together. And in doing that, you have to get your foot really dexterity in your foot, and speed and accuracy and volume.
But there's so many musicians, right? There's so many great players. Sometimes you have to brand yourself in some way. So whether it was Bernard Pretty Purdy or Jonathan Sugarfoot Moffett, surely, do you think it helped?
I think it helps a lot. Yeah. I wouldn't say grateful for it. I still like to be Duke or Ace or something, but I think it did help.
I'll call you Duke.
People thought it was catchy, and it describes what I do. So I wound up enjoying having the name, because it describes what I'm able to do.
So we mentioned before some of the people you play with. And the list is really endless. I just scratched the surface out before. What are your career highlights? If somebody said to you, what are your highlights of your career, what would you tell them?
It has to begin with the Jacksons, because I, like everybody, like probably yourself and many other people our age or stuff, big fan of the Jacksons, Michael and Jackson's Jackson 5 back when they came out. So I was very inspired by them, and I love the music. And so when I started playing their music with them, with the Jacksons, not with a cover band at the club,
Right.
it was a very big highlight. Now, mind you, Michael wasn't the iconic Michael we know now. He was just building their career back up. But I watched that evolution of him all throughout the way, of him becoming who he has become. But the Jacksons would be the starting point, because I love the choreography. I love hitting accents with them, and I'm always trying to read them and be the Foley, so to speak, to their dance moves. And I love the music, like I mentioned. Then I'd have to say Elton John, because it's my first time get to play rock and roll music, which I've always wanted to be accepted and known for playing as well, to make my versatility known. And playing with Elton was a great experience. And that also, he wasn't so regimented. He let me play free. It was like loose rock and roll. And I like that. More of the Jacksons' music and Madonna's music, more regimented. And the early years of Jackson's wasn't to the click, but they like it more regimented. Play this, and this is what it is. Elton, you just rock out. I interpret what Nigel did, and he said, but I want you to be you. I was into your career, and I like what you do. Be you. Play it the way you would play it, not the way Nigel would play it. But certain elements of Nigel playing is just so signature to the songs. I respected those and kept them. I'd have to say there's an Italian artist named Vasco Rossi. He's like an Italian rock god. I love playing with him because, once again, it was even a broader sense of rock and roll than Elton John. And a very powerful band, very powerful artist. And it was a challenge because I didn't speak Italian. I was flown over there, and they had the interpreter trying to describe what they wanted and things like that. But they also gave me freedom. And I could really, really get free and rock with them because it was a totally loose situation. And all the things I'd done before wasn't like that. I was confined. And I like the freedom of that. Another highlight of my career, let's see, there's a lot of them, Michael, of course, Michael is a solo artist. Michael became Michael Jackson, the old solo artist. Extraordinary.
You have done an incredible job, may I say, of helping with Michael's legacy. The statements you've made, the positions you've taken since his death, you've done as much as any other musician who's ever played with him to help push his legacy forward. And I assume that's based out of your love for him as a performer, as a person, and as a guy.
Absolutely, because Michael's like my family. I've been, he and I both know and spoke of it. More than half of our lives we were associated in building careers together. So I identify with him and the brothers as my family. They like my brothers, and Michael was like my brother. I lost a brother. When everybody else lost an icon, I lost a brother. To me, my spirit.
And a lot of the people that will watch this will be familiar with you from the This Is It documentary. And I mean that was something that was really, I think it's the most watched, heaviest grossing music documentary of all time.
Yeah, they proclaimed that. That is the greatest and best well done, and most iconic music documentary in the history of music and entertainment. Yeah.
So I mean that certainly got your name and image out, even more. I mean, you've always been known amongst musicians, but this certainly helped you with your public persona.
Yes, it did help me greatly in that. My sadness is, of course, losing Michael, but also that the public didn't get to see the show they was meant to see, which that was only maybe 70% of what was coming. And people were so excited about that, they just didn't understand. Once the whole thing was done and the rehearsal, the whole package was done, they wouldn't even understand what about the experience. Not see and hear, experience. It was pretty remarkable what Michael was bringing to the world as a comeback.
Well, part of what the Sessions does is we go into colleges, into schools, we talk to young up-and-coming musicians about the things they need to know to survive.
Yeah.
You have learned a tremendous amount. You've certainly survived. You've got a resume that's as impressive as anyone else. I mean, there's no disputing that you're a legend in the world of music. To close, what advice would you give young musicians? What do they need to know to have a chance to survive in this music industry?
First, you got to know about yourself and know what you really are trying to accomplish. You choose your instrument, and then you marry your instrument. You become one with your instrument. You can't do what I've done, other top artists, music artists have done. unless you basically marry your instrument. It becomes a part of you, extension of you. That takes time and putting in time with the instrument, one-on-one. And I don't mean just here and there, once a week, or twice a week, something like that. I mean every given day. If you want to reach this level, you have to be dedicated as part of getting, like you get dressed every day. You got to do this part of it that day. You got to do it every day and be dedicated. Got to be serious about it. When you learn something, you want to learn it exactly like it is on the record, or what you're listening to, trying to learn. And then you can evolve it into some other things, add in your elements. But you learn how the discipline of learning and playing it exactly like it was done, and becoming that artist, that person, that drummer, that guitar player. And then you start adding your elements, And I don't mean just the figures. I mean the feel and the attitude and the swing on it. There's different elements of parts of music, more than just the rhythm and the pattern. It's the human element that each musician etches into a record or a CD. That's part of their soul in there you're listening to. You try to become that person is what I'm trying to say. You try to capture and take an emotional photograph of their soul, and then you emulate it. But then, in time, once you got it down to a science of emulating them, you want to evolve it into adding some of your soul into your approach to it, your feel, your expression, your language. And then it becomes you. You've created a whole new language. It evolves. So I'd say that's one of the important things is practicing. Become one with your instrument. And you can't get anywhere without doing that, especially to this level. And learning to play with others, listening, instead of playing too much or trying to fill in everything and be the star of the show. My greatest enjoyment is playing songs and parts. I can solo, all day long. I can solo on a ballad. I practice all that stuff. I can do it, no problem, easy, on a dime.
Doesn't get you a gig, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I get a certain amount of degree of gratification from that, but not like the degree of gratification when I play Billie Jean with Michael. And Billie Jean is just 2 and 4 eighth notes on a hat. And I can do that for 3 or 4 hours and feel just as good and rewarded as playing a drum solo for 10, 15 minutes. And I can just keep that groove steady, and I feel because there's space and time in and around what I play, is more important is the space and the time, the silence and the groove. That's where the emotion goes in, fills in. So I enjoy doing that. More, I shouldn't say more than solo, but as much as soloing. I see that's important. The last thing I want to say is be smart. Young kids up to be smart. Learn your craft and what you're doing and how to apply it to music and create your language, create your identity. But equally as important is to try as much as you can to learn the business of music, because it is a business and it will swallow you alive, and you waste a lot of your time and realize later on you haven't gotten anywhere and being taken advantage of. It's very difficult. So take a business course. If you're in school, I tell everybody, my kids, everybody, whatever you do, take a business course so you know what to do with the money when you get it and after you get it, and you know how to protect yourself from other elements you're negotiating with or what you're dealing with, and which is fair for you, what's fair in the industry. Learn business course. It's very important because it go hand in hand in your career, and really make you solidified in your life by the time you get to be my age.
I mean, listen, that's profound advice, and I don't think anyone who's got any experience in the industry would disagree with any of that. So listen, man, thank you very much for coming to talk to us. We love you. Thanks for checking out the Sessions Legends series. Check out the rest of us. Go find us on Facebook at the Sessions Panel. Look for us on the web at thesessions.org, and we'll see you in a city near you soon. Take care.